Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Hello and welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. Is it exciting? There's plenty to talk about, and we're going to kick off with none other than Formula One because they were testing in Barcelona, but there's also a little bit of other news around the world with all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, lots of great action. The rallies, the NASCAR, the Indycar, so lots of looking forward to MotoGP. So yeah, plenty to chat about. But yeah, well, as always, Formula One's the headlines, and Lewis and Max started putting a little bit daggers in. Neither of them are going to let this go, are they?
Well, I don't think so. And you know what? Neither have got. Lewis certainly hasn't got any right to let it go because he was hard done by, and I would feel terribly hard done by. But Max put in a few little daggers in about
Masi was put
thrown under the bus.
Oh,
well, that's a bit harsh because he wasn't thrown under the bus. We feel a bit sorry for Michael Masi, but he was inadequate for the job. But
he's still got a nice new job. He's got a job. He hasn't been sacked. People on the Twitter saying, "But no, we don't want him sacked. He just has to be moved away from that job because he couldn't come back, and he hasn't." And that's so good. But Lewis was a bit. Lewis started talking about no non-biased stewards. So that Masi wasn't a steward. A lot of Twitter were pointing at Derek Warwick because he's a Honda dealer. And I find that important. I mean, Derek's one of the straightest guy, the most lovable, straightforward. He was a BRDC president, wonderful work for the British Racing Drivers Club for years. And I think it's a shame they picked on him on Twitter, right?
Oh, it's these tenuous links on the internet. You get the most tenuous of links, and you somehow stitch it together. I think
Antonio Liuzzi was criticised. He was a Red Bull driver, of course. So he was the steward out in Brazil for the famous Max running both of them off the road. So Liuzzi might, I don't know, but it's a bit, with Lewis saying without naming names, just saying we must have non-biased stewards. But the trouble is, every Formula One driver will have raced for a team in the past. So, it's very hard to have someone that, how do you test if they're not biased or not? You race for McLaren, you race for someone in your past, therefore you're going to be biased. But I'm happy with the way they've done it. They've got 2 new race directors, and I'm sure they'll sort out the stewards as best they can.
I genuinely don't think there's any bias in motor racing at all. I don't think there's any bias. I just think it's a genuine mistake. I think it could have quite easily have been a mistake the other way around, but it happened to be a mistake in Red Bull's favour. But it could have easily been a mistake the other way around because he was not right for the job. So he made a big mistake. But I don't. He
cracked under the pressure.
Speaking of pressure, Tiff, Needell, you told me and our audience, and thank you, by the way, our audience who listen to us, whether you have bad audio, good audio, lovely microphones, you always listen to us and you always give us good feedback. So thank you for that. But you told our audience that maybe there's going to be a brawn. Maybe there's going to be this super team that comes out of nowhere, a Haas.
And it
doesn't happen. It's normal service resumes. It's Red Bull and Mercedes.
Mercedes 1-2. Yeah, Mercedes 1-2. Lewis and George. Red Bull 3rd with Perez, actually. Max was 6th. Lando 4th, McLaren. I like that McLaren. I like the orange and blue.
It's a good-looking car.
Looking car. So Lando 4th. Ferrari's looking good almost every day. Ended up 5th at the end. It was only really Alpine that didn't have a good time. And I don't know, I sort of said, if I was running a team at these tests, I know it's all, what ballast, how much fuel they're running, what DRS were you using, what boost were you running. But I would always, at the end of the day, get a lap time, just for your mechanics and your sponsors and your fans. I'd always want to get a lap time on the board. And they all say, oh, yeah, well, we don't know what word, doesn't count, doesn't matter. In fact, the sort of general order was pretty much normal. Haas at the bottom and, Mercedes at the front. But Alpine had a bad time. And they said they didn't open the DRS ever because they had a problem with their wing. So maybe they will come out better. And of course, Alonso caught fire the last day. The classic Fernando sulking by a burning car. But yeah, it was, even Haas, Nikita Mazepin was 14th out of the 21. Alfa Romeo didn't show very well. They had Kubica. So 21 drivers, Kubica did some testing. But, and in fact, Mazepin was ahead of Mick, but will Mazepin be at the first race now with all the terrible, terrible things going on around the world? And a lot more calling out today that they've got to be banned from all sports, the Russians. So maybe Mazepin will be out. And But about Fittipaldi coming in, Pietro Fittipaldi. If you look at his track record, has done very little in a competitive. He's won the Renault 3.5, but that was when there was only about 10 people left in it, and nobody that famous was doing it. So I don't know why they got a love affair with Fittipaldi. But then people are saying, Giovinazzi, the Hulk coming back would be nice, or a lot of the Formula E drivers, about half the Formula E field deserve, a shot at Formula One. So it'd be a shame, I think, if they can't use Mazepin and they put Fittipaldi in. But a lot of talk that they won't. They'll have someone better.
And Tiff, I don't want to get into politics, and neither do you, I know, but it is awful what's going on. But you can't ban a driver because they're Russian, because it's like the footballers. You can't ban a footballer because they're Russian. However, Mazepin I think is unfairly quoted, by the way. I'm not standing up for the guy at all, but he said that he doesn't want to comment on the war and his driving. No, and then Jeremy Clarkson, goodness, the tweet of all tweets. If you haven't seen it, go on Twitter.
He must have had an extra bottle of rosé, I think, but he just laid into him with the most awful, insulting tweet. I don't know why he did that.
It's frustration, I think, with what's going on with Russia, of course. And we're all very frustrated and scared, and what's going to happen. But you can't ban a driver.
But you just ban. He'd have to change his license. I think that's all. He'd have to get a British license. He'd have to get a license from another country. It's just you can't have a Russian license to race. You obviously can't ban the human being from, like tennis players, and whatever. So I think that's all that will happen. He'll have to change license. If he doesn't want to do that, then he's got to leave it. But then maybe if he doesn't bring any money anymore, if it's his sponsorship that's got him that seat, which everybody assumes it is, and that money dries up, then the contract's sort of null and void. So
let us know below what you think of the Mazepin situation. What would you do? I mean, I think money talks, and I think he's got to be there for the money. But what would you do? Because it's a difficult situation for Haas, no doubt. They've of course lost their sponsor already. They've taken that off all the cars and the trucks. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Let's hope it clears up, and let's hope.
But the cars look good on track, I thought. They're saying that they're a bit cumbersome at slow corners because they're heavier now. We've got more heavier cars with more safety in the regulations. But they look pretty good at high speed. I like the front wing still looks a bit weird.
But you say that, Tiff. Did you see I think they call it porpoising.
Porpoising, yeah. I was good.
Where the cars bounce up and down on the
I've actually had that. Well, yeah, I had it. I was testing in the 1980s when the sliding skirts. I raced in Formula One with the Ensign in 1980. They had these sliding skirts, so you had amazing seals down each side. So this ground effect was massive. I was testing a March. It was 811 or 821, the Formula One customer March, and it was at Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And going down the main straight, it started doing this until your vision gets blurred. What it actually does, it sucks the car down. So you've got this Venturi, this gap between the car and the ground. This is why the suspension got stiffer and stiffer after this to make no suspension at all virtually. What happens basically, you suck the car close, then it blocks out the airflow, so you get no ground. So it bounces up again. Then it sucks itself down, blocks the airflow, bounces up and down again. It was horrendous. I mean, I had to come off the throttle. You couldn't drive it. But yeah, they didn't seem too bad because nobody seemed to say they had to lift off on the straights. But it'd be a hard thing to drive a whole race. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the new season. And I think it's going to be fantastic.
I don't see the porpoise of it.
Can
I just say that we're recording this quite late, so on Monday evening. So it goes out Monday 7:00 GMT, and there's just been hot off the press a breaking news from the BBC saying that football governing bodies, FIFA and UEFA, suspend Russian clubs and national teams from all competitions. So that's what you'd expect, clubs, but not individual players.
No.
Okay. So
also the other thing announced today, Formula One, they're going to insist, I think it's this year, on a young driver has to do 2 FP1s during a year. So every team must run a junior driver for at least 2 FP1s, which I think is needed. That's pretty. I said once that the reserve driver, you must have a reserve driver for the season that will always do FP1. You can alternate between one driver's and the other driver's car. So then on a Friday night, Saturday night, he's actually at the track, been on the circuit and could race the car. This would be fantastic for a young driver. He does every FP1. He learns the circuits of the whole world. But they won't go that far. But at least they're insisting, by the looks of it, that a young driver must do at least 2 FP1s.
No, I'm all for
FIA. Good. Well done, F1
brilliant.
FIA.
Yeah, good. And
you're on the up. You're on the up now. You're on the up.
What else is going on? Rallycross. Oh, I thought Effin Evans was going to...
World Rally Championship.
World Rally.
Yeah, Sweden. Fantastic shots on the snow. And it's amazing. When you look at them on snow and ice, you think, God, how can they go that quick? But actually, the studs they're allowed to have, they got more grip than on the British rally on the gravel, because you're not allowed studs in the UK. So they have got a lot of grip. But seeing the line and their pace notes must be so perfect, because you can't really see the shape of the corner. It's still white everywhere. I've seen them on the television. How do they see the line? And they just set the car up knowing that it's a 80 mile an hour corner or 50 mile an hour corner from their pace notes. And if their notes wrong.
What do they wear in terms of visor? Because they're always open face helmet, or do they ever wear?
Yeah, they all go for open face. I don't know why. I mean, you have these ridiculous safety regulations, where you have to wear fireproof clothing everywhere, and then you can have your face naked. I mean, it bedazzles me. It just annoys the hell out of me.
Bedazzles, eh? Oh,
Bedazzle, I don't know where that came from. But it was a great rally. And, but it's Kalle Rovanpera, this 21-year-old kid who now leads this Finnish driver, the son of a rally driver for Toyota, really dominated the week. Amazing driving. And it was Toyotas again. Toyotas were first, third, and fourth, with Esa-Pekka Lappi third and Takamoto Katsuta fourth. There's only Thierry Neuville who came through the Hyundai second. But the poor old Elfin, the Brits and the Irish who didn't have a good time. Craig Breen stuffed his Ford into a snow barrier on the first day, which put him on the back foot the whole time. And then Elfin, he crashed at the end of day 2. He crashed across the finish line, went over a snowbank, got penalised 10 seconds because he'd left the circuit and gone out onto a production road. But then on Sunday morning, when he's trying to catch the leader, he lost it big time again. But what happened, and this was a controversy, and I know I'll be pilloried for hating it, but it's these flipping hybrids.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh dear. I mean, manufacturers, do we really have to have that? I mean, it's this teasing. There's only 3 manufacturers. Well, I know Ford, Malcolm Wilson always said that Ford wouldn't have come in this year without the hybrids. But poor Ott Tanak for the Hyundais, Friday evening, he's on the start for a stage, and a red light comes on saying your hybrid system's gone AWOL, and that's it, you're retired. You can't drive, you mustn't touch the car. You have to wait until the hybrid manufacturers come along and defuse it.
Why?
Oh, because it might electrocute everybody that touches the whole car, I suppose. Okay. And that's the danger of all that electricity. But then that was no damage to the car at all, the thing. And then during the whole rally, I think Rovanpera the last day did half the Sunday without any boost because his wasn't working. But Elfin, although it was because he'd ripped the front end off the car, but he was trying to fix it. He could have finished the rally. But again, his hybrid light went out completely. There was no warning light, but there was no go light. So again, they said, you can't continue. So I know people, the lucky people would say, oh, what, has an engine never blown up? Has an internal combustion never blown up? Well, of course, internal combustions have blown up and caused retirements. But all you're doing with the electric hybrid is adding another thing that could blow up and could break and has ruined 2 people's rallies last weekend. And do we really need it?
It's the future, Tiff. It's the future. You've got to embrace these things,
Wait till touring.
Motorsport.
We'll wait till the British touring cars with their hybrids this season. You wait till Jason Plato's hybrid push button doesn't work for a race and everybody else is overtaking him. He'll be kicking off. I mean, the hybrids aren't going to work on that BTC. Not every car is not going to finish every race with their push button hybrid working. I can't believe they will. So it's
Can you remember those
complications?
Well, all through your racing career, really. I mean, certainly me growing up 80s, 90s with Formula One, the amount of times a car will break down. You'd be winning the race and you think, it might break down here. And
but a lot of it you see was driver error. I mean, so many, over revvings, little, flick. We had no rev limits in Formula One 1980. And no rev limits.
No.
I'm changing gear, flicking my little wrist, tiny gear. And if you just miss one, rev limits got, and you pray it's still, and then, you tip the valve. So, a lot of those engine breakages were driver error. So it was another driver skill to change down. Now they turn into corners and just pull the paddle. And if you're going too fast for the lower gear, it won't go down, so you can't make that error. So, anyway, going back to the rally, good for Gus Greensmith, another 5th place. I mean, Ford had a terrible time, as I said, because Craig Breen crashed out their star, but Gus came through to be the top 4 and 5th. But one good British thing, Northern Ireland's John Armstrong took the junior World Rally class. So big shout out for a Brit doing well with his Irish co-driver Brian Hoy, and they won the junior class by 2.7 seconds. Wow. After 3 days of, they're both in, he beat a Finn, Lauri Juna, sorry, more bad pronunciations from Finland, both in Ford Fiesta WR3. So fantastic. The 14th overall, his little WR3.
Amazing.
So yeah,
how close
great,
is that?
great. The trouble with the rallying, you only see it at the end of the day, you know, in the highlights, and but it's still hard to make that a live, entertaining sport. But it's fantastic shots of them going through those snowbanks.
Speaking of fantastic, it looked quite spectaqular. Indycar was in St. Pete on the street track. It's a funny, I mean, hard to overtake there, but it was quite eventful.
It's the thing about it is hard to overtake. There's only one long straight where they can overtake. They've all got push to pass. You defend with your push to pass. I like their push to pass system. You've only got a limited amount of seconds you can use. So, you know, if you want to overtake and someone defends.
It's the same as DRS. Sure,
no,
what's
because that's only one person has DRS. That's the
Okay.
whole point.
Yeah.
So you just sit there and the DRS guy. This time, if the push to pass, if the guy's coming, you can choose to use up some of your push to pass to defend with.
Yep,
so that if you use it too much, you'll run out. So it's part of the tactic of the driver. But I mean, the thing about St. Petersburg, I mean, it's a 1.8 mile street circuit. There are 100 laps. It's incredible the way they dabs of opposite lot. They go from it's wonderful to watch. There isn't much overtaking. There used to be a lot of yellows. There weren't many this year. But the story of the weekend was this Kiwi, Scott McLaughlin, who, you know, he was doing the Penske supercars in Australia and did really well. And somehow Penske saw this kid and the talent and said, we have a fancy Indycar. I mean, it's a huge leap from Aussie supercars to Indycar. And he had an average season last year, but it was pole position, flag to flag, tremendous drive. And as you say, there wasn't much racing, but the point is, it's tactics so much because they fill up with fuel as well. You have to use the black tyres, the softer Red Bull tyres. So some people go for 3 stops, some for 2 stops. And often the leaders will be running 10th, 11th and 12th because the first 9 were staying out trying to make it a 2-stopper. So you get big traffic jams and the backmarkers don't have to let the leaders by, which is another aspect, which upsets a few drivers in IndyCar still, particularly. Was it the end of the race, he was going mad.
Pato Ward, was it?
Power. Will Power, because they've got a new rule. They are going to use the blue flag now if the leaders come behind a car that's already lapped. Because the great thing about IndyCar is you stay on the lead lap. Because you get a pace car, then you're still on the lead lap. But so when the leaders caught, in fact, it was McLaughlin was being pressured by the current champion, Palou. But Palou's teammate, Jimmy Johnson, was just up the track and McLaughlin caught him and Jimmy held him back legally, you know. So Palou got onto his rear end and closed the gap right down. But they both got past Jimmy. And then Power, catching up in third, caught Jimmy and Jimmy raced him. Well, now they're saying that if you're already a lap down, you should get a blue. So now because the first 2 have gone past him, Jimmy was a lap down. And they didn't blue flag him. So there's still a lot of controversy about that. But Alex Palau came from 10th up to 2nd. But the other fantastic about it is they haven't got power steering. I mean, I go on and get about power steering. Well, what difference does that make, Tiff? But McLaughlin at the end was absolutely knackered. I mean, he collapsed. He did a few interviews. They sat down. You know, shattered 2 hours of that street circuit without power steering. That's the huge difference. You know, just not having power steering. It's a massive extra fatigue. And I know you sort of don't want to handicap a sort of slender young person, you know, because it's too tough to drive. But I think the public, you like to see that it was tough. You know, you like to see someone, otherwise I can do that, you know, and you see them getting out of the Formula One, oh yes, how are your tires, you know. And it was really, it's a very hard track. No good for the Brits, though. Jack Harvey slammed his car into the barriers in qualifying. Ended up 23rd on the grid, climbed back to the 13th, a fairly good climb up. Callum Ilott, who led for a while, he's one of those guys staying out. He was holding up the leaders. So on paper, he led, but he qualified 19th, finished 19th. Tatiana Calderon for the ladies. But again, she qualified 25th, finished 24th. I mean, she is the best female single-seater driver around at the moment. But, you know, she couldn't get off the back of the grid in the Formula 2 for a year. She went to Super Formula Japan and hasn't really got up the field. So, and she's got a year of IndyCar now, but it's going to be a tough year for her to really make any impression. But Yeah.
So
really
in terms of IndyCar, so you say tactics play a massive part and you like the tactics, but surely a race should be won by the racing driver's ability, not from tactics of the team.
Yeah, but the ability to run to the tactics is an ability as well. You know, I know sometimes, you know, you'll get the situation where someone from right at the back just happens to get to the front and there's yellows and then he leads and wins the race. But that does happen quite often as a real outsider wins. But that's just part of what they accept over there, because, you know, they want free racing, but they don't want to penalise people from, you know, that aren't as quick as others. And yes, there are some weird results, but that's, you know, the way they have it over there. As a spectator, as a television viewer, you know, I love it. And the cars are spectacular. They're twitching all over the place. You know, that's great stuff.
I love the 360 cameras as well. It's quite good to watch, especially around the street circuit in St. Petersburg.
One other little story from St. Pete, before we leave St. Pete, is that Matty Brabham, the grandson of Sir Jack Brabham, he came back to Indy Lights, the sort of Formula 2, after 8 years of not doing single-seater racing. He's now 28 years old now, so he quit at 20. He was doing those leaping super buggies. He's done that for 8 years, the stadium trucks. And he came back and he won his first race back. Very emotional moment and wonderful to see him. He's 28 years old, but now he could become an IndyCar driver. If you imagine a 28-year-old Formula 2 driver, what are you doing here? Why are you still in Formula 2 when you're 28? You know, you should be in GT. Well, you're more than 20. I mean, so I like it when age isn't the thing. And so really good to see Matt Brabham come back and win.
Very good. NASCAR.
What a race. I mean,
it's been
what
controversial.
A day I had Sunday. I came back from Daytona last week, you know, and then came this weekend, you know, Southampton won the football, and then, you know, and then we had the IndyCar and then NASCAR. It was a great race around Fontana, 2 mile speedway, really tricky. They've got these new generation cars that haven't really got sorted. They're spinning on their own at 180 miles an hour, you know, going down these clouds of smoke. And throughout the whole race, there were 3 or 4 cars came to the front for a while and looked like they were going to win the race. But of course, there's pace cars and someone spins and you have restarts. And in the end, it came to this amazing night. Some bloke, I might have mentioned him before, called, I can't remember now.
Number 5 by any chance?
Oh, yes, number 5. That's a good clue, isn't it? Still haven't got his name. Oh, was it Kyle? Anyway, Kyle Larson.
Mr. Larson, yeah.
And the amazing thing about the NASCAR was, you know, 2 or 3 hour race. Every pit stop, they change the jacking, they change the angle, they change the tyre pressures to make the car slowly get better and better. And he was having this amazing battle with Joey Logano at the front. He did this side drafting. So you go down, side drafting, pulls the car back. But as soon as you've done the job, you then pull away. With about 15 laps to go, he pulled away, and his spotter hadn't quite told him quick enough that his teammate in the Napa car came back. Chase Elliott had a huge head of steam, and he put Chase Elliott into the wall. He put his teammate into the wall. So it caused a bit of controversy with a lot of with Chase Elliott swearing a lot. But then it got even worse, because then they had, after that incident, Chase was going around with a hobbled car. It was all over the place. Something was a bit broken. He probably knew he was going to spin out any minute now. And he then got lapped by Larson. And so he knew who was leading. And Larson had quite a big lead on Joey Logano with about 5 laps to go. So it was going to be a cruise to the finish line. And Elliott said on the radio, I don't care who's leading. If this car spins out and causes a yellow, I don't care. And of course, what happens? 5 laps to go. Larson cruising to the win. Elliott loses control of his half-broken car. Out come the yellow flags. So Larson had to do a restart with a green-white checker, 2-lap run to the finish, but managed to hold on.
Cool. He would have felt very good if he ended up losing that for Larson.
I know. Well, if he'd lost it, but then Larson lost it for Elliott. So that's great NASCAR. It was a really entertaining race. So there you have it.
Glad you enjoyed it. Let us know your favourite bit from this podcast from last weekend. Yeah, from last weekend. Yes, Monday. What day is it? It's Monday. Yeah, we're going live tonight. So as always, thanks for joining, and we'll see you.
And coming up though, can't go without
coming up.
Talking.
I was eager to get off.
Of course, there's NASCAR, Las Vegas. MotoGP headlines is back. The most talking about entertaining motorsport. nothing entertains more really than MotoGP. Of course, no Valentino Rossi this year, and no Brits again in MotoGP. But all the testing, all the bikes seem very close, very competitive. So we'll wait and see who comes out on top of MotoGP. GP2, Moto2, GP2, Moto2. Can you remember the Moto3 champion you quite liked from last year, who was quickest in testing on Moto2?
Tell me.
Pedro.
Oh, okay, Acosta. Yeah.
Pedro Acosta. So fascinating to see. Dominic was such a star.
But he's cracking on now. He must be at least 17 years old.
He was quickest in testing. And we've got Britain Sam Lowes, obviously always up front in Moto2 and a good chance to start. And Jake Dixon, who had a bit of a lackluster season last year, he was up there in the testing, so maybe Jake Dixon could come through. And in Moto3, great news, because we're looking for British riders in the Moto. It's all these Spanish. I think the MotoGP's got 12 Spanish riders or something in the whole field. I don't know, stupid number, about half the field. But of course, we've got John McPhee, the Scottish, I was going to say lad, but the 28-year-old Scotsman.
He's still a lad.
Or 27. He's now starting his 13th season in the bottom form of Little Moto3. So he'll always be up the front and battling away. But great news, and this is what maybe motorsport needs in cars and things. Michael Laverty, the Northern Ireland guy, he's formed this team. What do they call the team? Vision Track Racing, to put two young British guys into Moto3. So McPhee is going to be joined this weekend by two 16-year-old Joshua Wakely from England, and also 18-year-old Scott Ogden, also from England. I think he's from Doncaster, and Joshua's from down Surrey way. So great. We've got two young Brits that maybe in 3 or 4 years' time will follow Pedro Acosta. So something really to look out for, not only for the entertaining racing, Qatar, that weird track, which is never-ending corners and that huge, long straight. So great entertainment this weekend for the motorbikes, and then Sunday night, just settle down for a bit of NASCAR from Las Vegas, baby.
So can I go and get dry now, because I've been out filming all day today? You've been putting your feet up, watching TV and drinking.
I've been out. I was away in America when all my fences are blown over. I've been out chainsawing trees all afternoon.
I've got wet socks. It's time to go because I've got to go change my socks and have a hot shower. But and if you haven't seen it, take a look at the recap Tiff and I did on the Caterham season, which is really good bit of fun. Do
Caterhams porpoise at all? I meant to ask you, do you have any porpoise?
They do when I drive them, but they're not normally, no. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Cheers. Bye.